Howdy doody everybody, I hope you are doing great. In today's video we're talking about the Death Stranding's Director's Cut. I love the original release of this game. I know not everybody did, but for me I'm a Kojima guy, so I absolutely loved it. And I'm here with Paradise to discuss it, and we're going to talk through some of the stuff that we've experienced in the Director's Cut so far, and the additions, and what you can actually expect from the game, and kind of like our experience with Death Stranding, and why you should maybe think about picking it up, or not. Because it's not a game for everybody. What do you think, Paradise, about all of this, the director's cut and everything?
So the PS4 Death Stranding was actually my first Kojima game. Like I've not played any of the other like Metal Gear Solids and all that. I think that we're two anomalies in that we really liked Death Stranding when the rest of the internet seemed to really hate it, and just everyone was memeing it for being a walking simulator. Which to an extent that is true. But
no, that is 100% true. It is literally a walking simulator.
For me though, I am a big player of games like DayZ and those sort of survival games, Armor Mod, Armor, where it's a slower pace of gameplay anyway. So I think I'm used to that style. So I found the walking and the slower parts to be okay, but then the craziness, the intrigue, and the story and the characters and the phenomenal acting throughout the whole thing was what made me fall in love with it, right? And I get that not everyone got to experience that because they got bored because of the walking simulator stuff, essentially. So
it's definitely one of those experiences where it's like, if you're recommending it to someone, you're like, it doesn't get good until like 10 to 15 hours in, and it's like a hard ask to ask anybody to play like a game 10 to 15 hours in, and the game doesn't necessarily ramp up in terms of like gameplay at that point, but you do get access to stuff that makes it like more exciting. But definitely in terms of it being an arduous journey, I think that's what actually makes the game kind of have its charm almost, and the experience that it actually is. What do you think about that?
I completely agree. I feel like I know that guys, let me know in the comments what game this was like for you, but I know that for a lot of people, and there have been other games for me where I'll play it at first and I just can't it doesn't click, right? And I'll leave that game and I might come back like a year or two later to try it out again, and then all of a sudden I love it that time around. And I think that for a lot of people, Death Stranding might end up being like that, where this new director's cuts come out for PS5, which essentially, and we'll talk about all the specifics, but it essentially bundles together a bunch of improvements, a bunch of new things that make the journey through the game like a better experience. And so if someone played it before and it didn't click, or they just never finished it, I think that this director's cut will be a really good like revisiting point to try it again and see what they think, because you know, even if you don't like the walking, seriously, like the acting, the cutscenes, the motion capture, the way that the characters are written, and just the intrigue of the story and why everything's happening and what's going on is so interesting and so fleshed out within the game. You just have to get to it. That for that alone would be like why I would recommend it to people. But obviously for some people, they would never play DayZ because it's too much walking and looting. They would never play Death Stranding because it's too much slow traversal around the map. But that is like part of the beauty of the game. So I think if you guys are interested in Death Stranding, you know, you never played the first one, or maybe you played it and you didn't gel with it, but you're now thinking, actually maybe I should give it another try, that this might be a good time to try out the director's cut. What do you think?
Let's actually, rather than what I think, let's talk about exactly how the director's cut actually makes it a better experience for people. So there's a bunch of new equipment and stuff that you can fabricate. So in Death Stranding, you go to these places, you get these kind of little briefcases that you can almost put down, and they kind of manufacture structures that can allow you to deliver items easier, or get kind of like benefits around the map, such as recharging your batteries and stuff like that. And there's a lot more items that kind of within the director's cut that allow you to build a lot more like different things. There's new weapons as well. One of the new items that I really like is the catapult, and this allows you to kind of launch delivery items like across the map and parachute them into a particular spot. And there's a lot of times during like the campaign or the story that you will have use for this. I know there's a bunch of times when you need to build bridges and you might not necessarily have the resources. This might be an easier option for you to get through. Plus, there is a whole breadth of firing range and VR missions. If you've played a Kojima game, you know that Metal Gear has a load of VR missions. This is also in there as well, so you can just go to your kind of home hub area and your delivery place. I can't remember what they call them, the delivery hubs basically.
Like outposts?
The outpost. And you can select the firing range from there, and there's a load of missions. There's some that have you defeating BTs, some that have you defeating mules, some that have you defeating just like general targets, and it's going to test your skills. Very Modern Warfare-esque skill-based like target practice place as well, which is pretty cool. And there is like a mystery mission as well that you can head on if you have completed the game and you want to revisit it as well. I haven't personally done it, but I want to see what actually happens in this mission and go there, and something that is very intriguing to me, because knowing more about this world is kind of the best selling point, as Paradise says. It's all about the story, the experience, and the journey that you actually literally go on. If you've played, I don't know if you guys have played it or not, you guys can let me know in the comments. If you've played a game called Journey, that's how I feel of Death Stranding. Death Stranding is basically like Journey, or any of those games that aren't necessarily about conflict. Like, I played my Death Stranding experience the whole time without necessarily going lethal at all, aside from on bosses where I feel like you need to go lethal. I played it non-lethal, and that experience where it's kind of incorporated this death and rebirth mechanic and all of that stuff really adds to this whole experience that was different for me in particular. I don't know how you played it, Paradise. How did you play it? Did you just go in like ham?
I feel like I did a combination. So there were sections where I was completely stealth, and if you guys don't know anything about the game, essentially, if you kill someone lethally, and this is basically the intro to the game, so I don't really consider it a spoiler. It's the first minutes of the game. You're escorting a dead body to be incinerated, right? And if you don't get there in time, it like blows up in this huge like nuclear-sized chasm with a big scary like black handprint in it. And that sort of happens in the world as well. So you have to think like, do I want to blow this entire place up, or do I want to go non-lethal and maybe a bit more stealthy, or use like blunt weapons and things like that? Just to quickly add though, there is also a racetrack that's been added in.
Yeah, there's a racetrack.
Later on, you uncover the highways, right? Which is a big part of the game. So it's cool that now there's a place to race. You can also like race against other players' times and stuff like that. But overall, all of the new stuff like the cargo catapult you mentioned, the body bot where you can like carry gear around and follow you, it all complements like the game and essentially makes it a bit more easy, a bit more fun to play through. Which is why I think this is a really great entry point into the game, or revisiting point for the game, because all these new things are basically enhancing the game, which is already, it's the same game, it's just got new things in it, you know. There's also one cool thing that I've only just recently learned is in this director's cut, and it's like basically rocket boots.
Is it? Wow.
Yeah, so they sort of let you jump further and reduce like your fall damage. They literally have like little jets on the side, so I just thought that was really cool. I was like, oh, I wish they were in there when I played. They're in there now,
that's why I think the whole director's cut is like, I wish that stuff was in there when I played. It just seems like a nice addition and would have made the whole process a bit easier to go through. I think one of the things that we need to really just call out with these director's cut is now on PS5 actually. So with it being on PS5, the graphics fidelity has just gone up massively, and it just looks absolutely gorgeous. I feel like the aesthetic of the world is amazing already, and this just kind of really brings it out in terms of like the fidelity and just walking through the place. Like, we were playing it yesterday and we were just going through and just amazed by how like good it generally looks, combined with the fact that with the DualSense controller, it's got these like nice like haptic feedback as well.
It's so good. Yeah. It's so immersive. You know what it is? Because I played it on PS4 without those haptic feedbacks, and then we were playing it the other day, and now I'm like, this is so much better, and I wouldn't have even known it was so much better, you know? Yeah. It's like, it's one of those things that just passively adds to the immersion of the game. Like, those scary parts at the beginning of the game, because I played through the beginning of the game again, they were so enhanced by, like, the vibrations, you know, with the footsteps coming, the handprints coming towards you. It's, like, the small details like that just really add to it. So, I have to say, I've said it before, if you haven't played it and you're interested, or you did play it and you didn't quite gel with it, have a think. Don't just go and buy it. Have a think if you want to revisit it, because this is probably the best way to play it now. Like,
I think one of the good things is, as gamers, or bad thing as gamers, is that sometimes we get swept up in what like everybody's saying at that time. And now that nobody's really talking about Death Stranding all that much because like the initial launch is past, now's like the perfect time to kind of really revisit it and have your own ungarnered opinion about it and see how you like it or not. I will say the story, while I found the story good, there are parts that are kind of like cringe inducing and stuff like that, but there is a nice payoff. Like if you play it to the end and you complete it, the first 2 hours amazing of the storytelling, and the last 2 hours like absolutely insane in terms of the storytelling. So I want more people to be talking about it and experiencing that, and talking about like what actually happened there and stuff like that, because it does feel like a compelling conclusion that you don't really get from like many games really a lot nowadays. So definitely if you're a story person and you want to see what happens in this like crazy world, this is definitely one of those games that you will enjoy if you can see it through to completion, basically. Yeah.
One last thing as well, it's mad because everyone thinks like, oh, Death Stranding walking simulator, but literally the boss fights in Death Stranding are so cool, and they are not walking simulator boss fights. Like there's no other game that does these like monster boss fights like Death Stranding really does. Like, they are intense, they are crazy, you need to rely on these like different crazy weapons. And another thing that's new in this director's cut is actually that every time you defeat a boss in the game, you know how you collect the figures and they build up on the shelf, if you remember that?
Yeah.
You can now actually inspect those figures and go back and fight those bosses again, and there's a leaderboard for them. So
no, I would
for me,
not do
there
that.
are some
like those bosses. Some of those bosses like really creeps me out. Like, so I'm not doing that. Like, never again.
For me, there were some bosses that I'm like, I wonder if I could have done it a different way. And so for going back for me is actually an interesting thing. And I think the leaderboard aspect of it gives it that bit more longevity that I think some people might want. So it's worth mentioning that is in there as well, which I thought was quite cool. Basically, kind of like a chapter select, but for the bosses. Yeah.
So you can actually upgrade to the director's cut for, I think if you're in the UK, £5. I've been seeing some articles. I don't know the exact pricing on everything at the moment.
Like 5 or 10.
Yeah, £5 or £10. But if you can do that, maybe that's like an easy way for you to actually pick it up and just get in and playing it if you want to, or if you never finished it, right? So you can import your save from your PS4 version over into this version as well. So if you haven't finished it, maybe now's your time to actually finish it and get to the end of the game. I think that's our general opinions on this. I think it's, as Paradise said, a good time to pick it up and just have some fun with it if you are intrigued with it or if you haven't finished it in general. But Paradise, got any words to say to the people before we wrap up?
Just that it's not all a walking simulator, guys. I had fun with it. I know that people didn't, but I did. Yeah. But also, if you really want to spend some time thinking about it, over on my channel, I'm going to be having like gameplay part 1, the first part of the game, so you can check it out, see what it looks like on the PlayStation 5, and just experience that bit of the gameplay to see if you then want to pick it up and go further.
Cool. Alright, thank you guys for making it to the end of the video. I'll see you guys on the next one. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget you can subscribe so you don't miss another video.